Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our conversation on accessibility and ADA advocacy with leaders from 3 Nevada performing arts venues. My name is Erica Hill. I'm the Community Arts Development Specialist in Northern Nevada, and I'll be facilitating our conversation tonight. The Nevada Arts Council is committed to making art and culture accessible across the state and finding ways to increase accessibility and awareness of accessibility. In 2019, we began the IDEAS program to lead workshops in inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility. We continued these workshops online in 2021, but during the past year, as we have finally emerged from the pandemic as a fully staffed agency, we have done these workshops internally with our staff to better understand our own bias and identify where we can make ourselves more aware of our needs to address accessibility within our agency and to our constituents. We understand that the Nevada Arts Council plays a critical role in advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion in and through the arts. We know we must constantly challenge ourselves to reduce barriers and bias, making the arts central to the well-being and prosperity of all communities across Nevada. We are committed to advance inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility through our actions. Now we are developing programming in which we encourage conversations on these topics and facilitate opportunities to engage with these subjects. Tonight is the first program in a series in which we give platform to those with personal experiences and idea work. We recognize that tonight's panel is just the start of our conversation and programming we are developing on these topics. So, without further ado, I am pleased to introduce you to our speakers tonight, advocates of accessibility representing 3 different performing arts organizations in Nevada: Dennyse Sewell, Executive Director of the Pioneer Center; Melanie Jupp, Director of Education and Outreach at the Smith Center; Melissa Taylor, Executive Director of the Reno Little Theater; and Layla Lehrman, Chair of the Reno Little Theater's IDEA Committee. We will give each speaker 20 minutes to talk with us and follow it up with the questions and answers at the end. We will begin with Dennyse, followed by Melanie, and then close the night with Melissa and Layla. So, without further ado, thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone. I am Dennyse Sewell, Executive Director of the Pioneer Center for the Performing Arts in Reno, Nevada. I am super honored to be here in this conversation tonight. It's very humbling to be invited to talk about this because it's work near and dear to my heart and an ongoing effort. I'm by no means an expert in any of the things I'm going to tell you, except my own lived experience as I'm walking this path with all of you. So with that said, I'm going to start my presentation here. As we just said, this is what we're here for right now, this fabulous presentation, thanks to Nevada Arts Council. The Pioneer Center for the Performing Arts, we are a building in the heart of downtown Reno. If you're not familiar with Northern Nevada, we are the primary performing arts center in Northern Nevada. We're sort of a counterpart to the Smith Center up here in the north. We are right in the heart of downtown. We're along the Truckee River, which is the main kind of artery that runs through our community. We are a physical space. We are not the creators of the really important and transformative work that happens on our stage. We are the theater itself that hosts the work of others. Our role in this conversation tonight is the work that we've been doing to connect a broader base of patrons with our physical space. The mission of the Pioneer Center, I think it's just nice to start with why we do any of these things that we do. We exist to cultivate exceptional performing arts experiences, both in our historic venue and throughout the region. This is a sweet shot of the beauty of downtown Reno. If you haven't been here recently, it's a fabulous place. We do it because our vision is a community that is connected, enriched, and inspired through the power of live performance. We're guided by 4 primary values philosophies. The first one is that we are all stronger together. We really believe that the absolute best way to achieve our goals is to collaborate with other arts organizations and to lean upon the power of partnership in all that we do. Key to this discussion today, but again to every choice we make at the Pioneer Center, is that the arts really are for everyone. What that means is in what's happening on stage, but also in who is in the audience. We really want to reach as many people as possible for everyone to feel welcome and respected in our space. We are dedicated to the idea that education really is fundamental to a thriving community. as we have all seen, the educational outcomes suffered tremendously during the pandemic from isolation, and togetherness is a benefit to absolutely everything, including educational outcomes and future possibilities for children. And then also we're stewards of a really important cultural treasure. This unique, quirky building that you see on your screen here, this bird's eye view, we are the current custodians of this beautiful space, and it's our responsibility to operate it to the highest levels of integrity so that it is still an asset for future generations. So with that said, the Pioneer Center truly is a historic building. We're on the National, State, and City Historic Registers. This is a fun shot of the building being constructed in the 1960s. One of the really interesting challenges about being a building from the 60s is it was constructed prior to thoughts for people with accessibility concerns. It was not built to modern codes. You're going to hear from my counterpart in the South a little bit later about new construction, some of the beautiful things that can happen in brand new buildings. But for those of us who occupy older buildings and certainly historic buildings, there are quite a few challenges in retrofitting the space for modern accessibility needs. The challenge is in the money and time to do the renovations, but also truly the challenge of assessing what is your top priority and what to dig into first, knowing that all of the work is equally important and you have to start somewhere. Today, we are home to a wide range of programming, including school field trips, local performing arts organizations like the Reno Philharmonic. Outdoor performing, we want to bring the arts again to as many people in the community as possible, including not having to buy a ticket to attend an event inside the theater. And then also our little pride and joy, I would be remiss if I did not include a closing shot of the national tour of Hamilton. So again, our beautiful, quirky, historic theater is home to a really, really wide range of programming. And we want to make sure that as many people in our community as possible can be part of this journey with us. This unique building, our primary considerations in this work are about how to make it more accessible to people with physical disabilities, with hearing impairment, and with visual impairment. Those are the primary areas that we've started to dig into with our accessibility work. Whether we're talking about the exterior, the interior, front of house where the audience members are, or back of house where the performers might be, all of those areas, lobbies, bars, restrooms, they all need to be evaluated from an accessibility standpoint, and it is truly a bit by bit, piece by piece kind of a project. If you are watching this, whether you find yourself responsible for a physical venue or presenting, performing, and exhibitions inside someone else's physical venue, it's a really good idea for you to find out the ADA accommodation abilities, even from a space that you're renting to put on your show. You want to be aware of the challenges and the possibilities in the space where you're going to be presenting your event. Our building is a series of really interesting and really beautiful and really complicated angles. And if you are approaching this from a standpoint of having limitations on your physical abilities, this is a daunting space. Again, it was designed for interest and flow and angle, not necessarily so much for accessibility. The lobby is entered at ground level, but all of the other spaces inside the theater require you to go either upstairs or downstairs. So to access any of our programming, there is a physical barrier for you to be able to get there. And again, as I mentioned, it was not originally designed with the disability community in mind. So examples of just some of the work that we've done to our physical space thus far include making the front doors accessible through a push button on our exterior plaza, so that if you have a challenge accessing the door handle or pulling the door open, we do now have automatic door openers. We have quite a few learning moments I'm gonna talk to you guys about tonight. One of them was at the elevation change on the staircase. We were really excited to find a shade of gray in the carpet that matched the other carpet. And that's actually not ideal, because although from a design standpoint, you think what a great thing to find that same tone of gray, you actually want as much contrast as possible for major change in elevation. So for someone who's starting to have a little bit of visual impairment, you want those major changes to stand out even more than what I'm showing you in this photo here. So we are actually in the process of replacing some of the bullnose edging on those key transition steps to make them really, really stand out for folks whose vision is a little bit impaired. We also, this is just another shot of the theater, but I wanted to also call on the idea of the auditory impairment. We have invested in different types of hearing assist devices, both that are compatible with hearing aids and also that work on a headset. Not just necessarily for people who identify as patrons with hearing impairment, but for anybody who's having a little trouble picking out some of the sounds that are happening on stage. It's a way for them to plug right into the live feed and get a really clear access to the sound. And then also things like the proper height for door handles, for bathroom fixtures, for drinking fountains, all of the things you need to think about have an actual proper legal height per ADA regulations. And in older buildings like ours, they all have to be intentionally retrofitted to meet those regulations. Sometimes it is a capital improvement project where you're really doing a renovation, and sometimes it's actually a workaround in your process or your program. If you are not yet engaging in a major capital project to fix something, you have to find a workaround for your services that you offer so that you can still make the accommodation prior to the project. So what I'm showing you here are a couple of our concession locations. They have not yet been overhauled, and so that renovation has not taken place with ADA in mind. But what we are able to do is have our bartenders come around to the front of the bar to serve people with different accessibility needs so that they can still have the same service despite the fact that perhaps they're not able to reach across the bar or they may not be at that height. So some more of the work we've done certainly is inside the auditorium. We're a 1,500 seat venue. It's really critically important that as you start to engage in this work, you consider where the wheelchair accessible locations are inside your venue. The ideal model would be that you have them dispersed both horizontally and vertically throughout the theater. So meaning they're on the sides, in the center, down front, in the center, in the back, as many places as possible. And in spaces that have to be retrofitted, you really are a little bit more challenged for where you can put wheelchair accessible seat locations. So that's been a big challenge for our staff, is to really work toward continuing to add locations that are wheelchair accessible, that also have sufficient room and comfortable seating for companions who may be attending with the wheelchair users. One of the challenges for us is our balcony is not accessible by elevator, and there is not physically a way to make that happen. So one of the sort of concessions we've had to make is that wheelchair seating cannot be available in our balcony. It can only be available on the main floor level. We can still meet the need for the number of seats, but it's just a given in our specific space that it cannot be available in the balcony. The percentage of seats that you have to have in the wheelchair locations also corresponds with the percentage in each individual price level. So no matter where in your venue you are able to put those seats with as comparable of a view as possible, you also have to ensure that you're evaluating the price point of each of the wheelchair accessible seats that you have. It has to be at least equal to or better than the price point for the other seats. So in other words, if 10% of your auditorium is at a specific price level, 10% of your wheelchair accessible seats have to be priced the same, regardless of where they're located. So that was a really important learning moment for my team as well, to reprice where our seats are located to make sure that we're compliant with that. With all of this said, in any given venue, there are going to be accessibility accommodations available, whether it's a new space, an old space, a big space, a small space. And the best thing that you can do is on your website, make sure that you have that accessibility information presented, so that if someone is looking to find out information that they need to know prior to their visit to your event, it needs to be available and at the forefront for them to find that. Um, One of the things that we have done is created different drop-down menus on our site. So as soon as you go to the accessibility tab, you can learn more about wheelchair locations, assistive listening, accessible parking, the wheelchair accommodations in the restrooms, and any of the services that are available from our ushers. It's also key that you have a real human being, a real contact point for people with these questions. So we also have a phone number and an email address listed here for our team member who is specifically trained in this area of accessibility and can respond to patron inquiries about the services that we have available. Another learning moment for us. We previously in the past kept all of the wheelchair accessible locations held back at our box office so that you could only purchase them through our staff. Our intention behind that was that then we could give you truly the best service and we could customize what you needed. And we could ensure that able-bodied people online could not purchase a location for someone with a mobility constraint. And we have since learned that that's actually creating an unintentional barrier to access for those folks. And it was such an important aha moment for us that our attempt as non-wheelchair users to provide what we considered to be a good service was actually the opposite. And I think there are some really humbling moments that you will have when you start down this journey of thinking that you know how to be helpful and what the answer is, but truly be open to all the things you will learn along the way. This evolution has resulted in us having all of our wheelchair accessible locations available online and facing those interesting and difficult and challenging moments where a non-wheelchair user purchases that and you have to talk to them, for Hamilton, they buy it, they didn't read the pop-up, they clicked through, they purchased the seat, and then someone who is a wheelchair user wasn't able to purchase. So there are a lot of learning moments and opportunities to kind of lean into those occasions as you go through your journey. And so from all of these things, right, all of these possibilities for the different types of accessibility, the key thing for us was in recognizing that we don't have to go it alone and we shouldn't try to. Again, with that story that I just mentioned about wheelchair users and myself as a non-wheelchair user making a decision that I thought was the right one, you should consult with your patrons, the users of your services or the people who would like to use your services about what they actually need from you. Rather than to stand back, look at it and say, I know the solution. It's so much better if you go the extra step and you take a moment to consult with folks who have these different disabilities and who use your services or otherwise would want to. We approached that analysis about the wheelchair seating locations and the wheelchair seats available online. And then one of our patrons who is a wheelchair user, she's a season ticket holder and reached out to us to explain more from her perspective. And we were so receptive to the idea of actually hearing from someone who uses those services. And she has become a consultant and a friend and an advocate and an ally for our work. And she has helped us when we have started down the wrong path with something. She's connected us to other resources in the community. So it really does expand your possibility of doing truly impactful, genuine community-rooted work when you reach out to folks who utilize those services and get them involved in your journey. It's a vulnerable thing to do because you have to publicly admit you don't know everything, but I really think it's important that you do, that you start from the space of we don't know the answers, but we would like to find them out and we want to do it the honest, transparent way. There are so many resources available online. There are resources in your local community. There are organizations doing the kind of work that you need the answers to, and they live this work every day. So don't go it alone. Consult with those folks, and they will help you make sure that the work you're doing is the most impactful it can be. One of the key organizations for us as we started this work was the Kennedy Center. I so highly recommend if you're going to pick a model, pick the Kennedy Center. The work that they do is just above everyone else in this field. They are so dedicated to it, and their website is the perfect model for you to start digging through to see what are the services they offer, what is the wording that they use, how do they refer to these sorts of accommodations, the sorts of services that they offer. They are essentially setting the standard. And so what we were able to do, we were very, very fortunate to be able to bring the director of accessibility from the Kennedy Center here to Reno. She stayed with us and toured the Pioneer Center and did a complete overhaul of our programs and services and facility operations for 2 days. And she left us with this really, really thoughtful checklist of all of the things to start digging into. Again, I could not more highly recommend the Kennedy Center. Turned us on to this very important little number here, a many page ADA checklist for existing facilities. If you are not new construction, or if you do your programs in a space that is not new construction and you want to learn about this, this is sort of the gospel. This is the handbook to be able to evaluate every single thing in your building. It has checklists, diagrams, measurements, explanations, guidance. So we refer back to this on a regular basis. It's what we used to go through literally every space, measure the height of every handrail, really use this to try to ensure that every piece of the work we were doing was compliant and to best practices. We have also been turned on, thanks to the Kennedy Center, to this organization, Leadership Exchange in Arts and Disability, which is also called LEAD. It is a nationwide gathering once a year. They do a really, really fabulous and important conference all about accessibility issues in the arts, not just performing arts, but museum spaces and other cultural institutions as well. Our house manager at the Pioneer Center, she is our dedicated accessibility expert. She's really passionate about this work, and she attends the conference every year. But you can also sign up for their email list, and they will send you all kinds of articles and webinars and really important topics for you to consider. You can comb through their website and find one sheets, brochures, videos, just tremendous resources that, again, really, really highly recommend the work that they're doing. And it's a way for you to connect with your peers across the country who are also doing this work. And it's really empowering to know, again, that so many people are going down this path together, are doing this journey together. But I would be remiss if I did not tell you, your own state arts agency also has tremendous resources available. This is on the Nevada Arts Council's website. It's all about accessibility. There are links, there are articles, there are resources. The reason they put together this webinar and invited us to speak tonight is because of how much they also care about this issue. So you're really fortunate to be able to just reach out to your team at the Nevada Arts Council and say, we want to start this work. We're not really sure what our first step should be. They're an advocate, they're a resource, they're a guide for you. So be sure to lean into that. Again, I am by no means the expert. We learn more every day. We are continuing down this path. We have only just begun the work of expanding the accessibility of the Pioneer Center. It will be an ongoing process in a historic building located underground inside the water table, adjacent to a river. There are so many incredible challenges about being a concrete bunker underground. There are changes we can make, and there are changes we literally cannot make. And so we continue to just explore the absolute best we can. And the reason I have this slide up here is because there are infinite possibilities for us to learn more. Look into things like GalaPro, which is a closed captioning system that is something that we're really going to try to learn a lot more about in 2023 to see if it makes sense for us. So many other accommodations that you're about to hear about from my cohorts on this panel. But for us at the Pioneer Center, the key thing that is going to make or break the success of our initiatives are the people. These human beings in this photo, these are our ushers, and they're all volunteers. And they come to us for every single performance because of their passion to connect the community with the performances happening in our venue. And one of the key things that we're starting to work on in consultation with the Kennedy Center, because they have a similar model, is to create a group of our ushers who are specially trained in accessibility and who are able to provide a more custom experience for folks who do come to the theater and have different accessibility needs, because it goes beyond the casual person's understanding of what is appropriate, what is helpful, what the right way is to connect people with programs and services. And so leaning into the human element of your organization and really assembling a team of people who are passionate about making sure everyone has a great experience, no matter what their accessibility needs might be. I think that is the key to, again, continuing to sort of stumble forward in this work. You will not always get it right. You will not check a box and move on. You don't just fix a thing and say, oh, well, the bathroom fixtures are at the right height, so we did accessibility. It has to be a permanent commitment. It has to be a core value for you that you really, really, truly want everyone to have equal access to your programming. And as long as that's the case, you will continue to stumble forward. You will learn more. You will try again. You will reach out to people. You will be humble about what you don't know, but you will continue to do the good and important work of inviting more people to join you. So I just want to close and say that it's not immediate. It's not everything all at once. You don't just resolve it suddenly because you watched a webinar or you read an article or you downloaded that checklist. It's ongoing. It's big. It's permanent work, but it is worth it. And you better start anyway, because your community needs this from you and you can do it. You are an imperfect mortal human like the rest of us, and get in there and get started. It's so rewarding. It's really important work. So thank you guys.